McCowan and Shannon, we are back with you. It is an interesting time of the year. We've gone through the trade deadline, and it's a time of year where general managers like our guest today, Doug Armstrong of the St. Louis Blues, has to make a decision on where his team is at. And Doug made that decision, and I guess decided that the Blues weren't going to be good enough, at least not now. And so you made significant moves, probably just about as many as anybody towards the future. How tough is a decision is it to make, to say, hey, we aren't good enough, we got to change this thing?
I would say our decision wasn't that difficult just because of how our season was at American Thanksgiving. It didn't get any better through December and January. So I wish it was harder. I wish we were in a spot. I was hoping to be in a playoff spot and then get ridiculed for not making these decisions because of the hope of a championship. But we didn't have that hope this year. We had played our way out of it. So, it's difficult to put to close the door on an era, but it wasn't difficult because of where we were sitting on what needed to be done.
So how would you define what you are doing right now? I mean, we nobody likes the word rebuild. We've morphed to the word retool. What would you define the Blues are going through?
Well, I look at some franchises that are about to take off. I think New Jersey, I think Ottawa, I think Buffalo are look like they're going to take off. But that was the better part of a decade to get to the starting point. I would say if we were to look at someone that we want to emulate, to be LA. I think it was 3 years maybe out of the playoffs. So we hope to be only 1 or 2 years out of the playoffs. But I don't think that we view ourselves, John, as someone that wants to be at the bottom of the NHL for the better part of a decade to get to where those teams are at now. I'm not sure our market could sustain that.
You obviously made this decision with the knowledge that the free agent market, in your own words, is not someplace you are likely to go during the offseason. Is that true?
Yeah, it is. I think that I don't know what players will get to free agency, but the depth of the superstar player might not be there this year that it was in the past. And quite honestly, even if it was, I don't think we're in that part of our growth pattern to bring those players in. I think when you look at a superstar player, they want to look at something and say, okay, I can be the final 5 or 6% to make you 100% whole.
Right.
We're further from that than now. So I view maybe picking around the edges of players that can support a younger group as they continue to grow, not be the final piece of a puzzle that can put you over on your way to a championship.
You lost in your decision to trade Ryan O'Reilly to the Maple Leafs. You lost one of your pure leaders. Who's that next group of guys on your roster that you think can replace O'Reilly's, not his play, but his leadership?
Well, I think you start with the veteran players. You have Shen, and you have the 4 defensemen that have experience, and Leddy and Parenko, Falk, and Krug. You have Shen up front. But then I want to see that next wave of the Robert Thomases, the Kyrous, the Buchneviches, to see where their leadership group is at, or where their leadership skills are at. It's not something, John, that we need an answer from between now and the end of April. It
Right.
could be 12 months to 24 months before someone grabs that and naturally grabs that. I don't think what we're not going to do is force feed the leadership group. They're going to have to define that themselves, but it is a group in flux. That's most definite.
You touched on Thomas and Kyrou. Obviously, they were, when we talked to you last, you had just signed them to new deals, and that was kind of a cryptic message to everybody saying you're going younger. And then Craig Berube had a bit of a fencing match with one of them a week ago in the media. What did you make of that?
I would say I was disappointed. I was disappointed that the emotions got the better part of our organization, and we put things out in public. I think that when Craig looks back on it, I think some of the things he said were accurate, and some were not accurate. But it came out of competitiveness, and I know they've talked to each other, but those things you certainly never want to. There's 2 things you don't want to do. You don't want to bring up money, and you don't want to question someone's character. And I think emotion got the better part of it. I think some of those were sound bites that you could take a longer statement and grab the sound bite, and that carried the day. But ultimately, it wasn't a great day for our franchise.
Yeah, but you listen. I've known you long enough, and I know who mentored you. When you think of the Clarks and the Gainies, that was something that was so un-St. Louis Blues like that I think it surprised so many people.
Well, it surprised me. I'm not going to lie to you. I was at home at night and I got a call from our public relations department saying that there's a storm brewing that you're going to have to deal with the next day. And I listened to the comments. And again, we addressed it head on. We talked to the players involved. We talked to our leadership group. We talked to our entire team, and we talked to our coaches. And it was something that when you're taking on water, you don't need to grab the hammer and make another hole in the boat. There's enough water coming in, and it wasn't a great day for our franchise. I don't want to sugarcoat it. But with that being said, we did patch up that one hole we created, and now I do see us moving forward. Our last couple of games, we're more competitive. We stopped feeling, I don't want to say feeling sorry for ourselves, but it is cast on who we are and what we're trying to build, and the guys are buying in.
So you're in a rebuild, which is interesting because we talk about that, but we don't talk about the specifics of it. Is there a way to do this, or is it just by feel?
I think you can look back at history. When we talked earlier about the decade rebuilds, where you want to do, like when you look at Pittsburgh's championship run that they're on now, the last better part of 15 years, you end up with, I think, two first, a second, and a fourth. You don't get that by osmosis. You earn those picks, and or you look at what Jersey, what Buffalo are doing, and you look what LA's doing. So there's different formats. I think free agency has changed that quite a bit, where at 25 to 27 players can be free. If you draft well, you can paint a picture why it shouldn't take that long. But every organization is different. There is no blueprint, and I look at the draft like you have to pick a good year to have a bad year, and that you can have the worst year in the NHL history and then it not be a great draft year, and you get nothing out of it. Or you could get Crosby.
You never know.
Yeah.
Well, or Berkey claims that was just an envelope away from being successful for his team. You know that. So.
Yeah.
So what are your amateur scouts telling you about this year beyond? Because all we hear about Connor Bedard. We hear a little bit about Adam Fantilli. We hear about the kid in Sweden. What are your amateur scouts who are thrilled you have all these picks? What are they telling you about the draft?
Probably it's a 4-player draft at the top. If you include the Russian player, which is a total wild card,
right?
And then what my understanding when I talk to them and I refer back to things I've heard before, it's that next grouping. It goes, sometimes it goes from 4 to 7 or 4 to 8. This might go from 4 to 12 or 4 to 13. So that grouping is a little bit deeper, and then it's deeper as you go into the later into the first round, early second. I think at that point, then you're just, again, you get to the draft and you hear a name called and you say, we don't have him on the list. And we probably do that and then grab a guy. My point is that at some point it just becomes a personal preference and throwing a dart. But I think the darts get to stay in the box a little bit longer this year